morning, Quadcopter 101 here, and today's shout out goes to Ray FPV. Ray was first to say first in one of my recent videos and thus wins this shout out, so congratulations. Good morning, Quadcopter 101 here with a review of the Eachine E160 brushless 6-channel helicopter. Now, what is the E160? Well, the E160 is actually, what I would consider at least, I'm sure others might consider the same, that this is an entry-level hobby grade helicopter, okay? This is not intended for beginners, folks. In my opinion, at least, it's not intended for beginners, as you would definitely break this one if you're a beginner pilot, never flown RC before. I would not recommend this, okay, for a beginner pilot. Instead, I would consider something like the Eachine E119 with altitude hold and brushed motors, much safer, okay, much less chance of damaging it in a crash also. This one's pretty powerful with his brushed motors, folks. Those of you who are considering, that should consider this, would be intermediate pilots or new pilots that have already had the Eachine E119, E129, and wanted something a little, you're skilled with that already, and you want to advance a bit. This would be perfect, okay, for that case. Now, additionally, this has the capability of doing acrobatics. It can fly in either 6G stabilized for those new entry-level pilots wishing to enter into hobby grade, or with a flick of a switch you can go into 3D mode. Now 3D mode would be the equivalent of acro mode in a quadcopter. It's very difficult to fly, especially for somebody who has not flown acro or 3D mode of a helicopter or a quadcopter before, okay? Almost always you're going to end up in a crash if you try to do that right out of the box. With that in mind, I recommend those of you that are considering this and wishing to learn to fly 3D and also to fly acrobatics to instead consider starting with a simulator program before putting this into 3D mode. And this has the capability of doing such, and I'm going to discuss that in a little more detail a little bit later here in the review, so hold on for that, folks. Okay, this version comes ready to fly, and when I mean ready to fly, it comes with a controller already set up and bound to it. This controller is actually not too bad of a controller. It's Futaba brand, or Futaba protocol S-FHSS. Oh, there you go, right there. And has all the switches you need to fly a 6-channel helicopter. And again, I'm going to go over in more detail on that in a bit, but let's go focus on the helicopter for now. Okay, we'll start from the top to the bottom. We'll go through each of these components on this helicopter. First off, the rotor blades on this particular helicopter are a combination nylon and carbon fiber rotor blades. These should be very resistant to damage in a crash. I'm not going to say they're not going to break. These will break, and that's why they're giving you spares. But they should be resistant, somewhat resistant to crashes. Additional things on this particular helicopter. Let me remove the canopy too, so you can see the insides as we go down through each of these features. But additional features of this is this helicopter comes with an all-metal rotor hub, okay, and all-metal pitch horns. They do have plastic pitch control links here and there. It has an all-metal Swashplate. Now I'm going to go into detail about the Swashplate and what it does a little later here too. But also control rods are metal here, and high precision servos, 3 of them here for controlling both collective and cyclic. This has cyclic and collective control. I'm going to show you how that works also in a bit. Other things on this, it has a brushless motor. This particular motor is a 1308 Hulk motor for the main rotor blades. It powers the main rotor blades through a metal pinion gear there to a plastic main rotor gear there. Additional items, we have, this is that Futaba receiver attached to the flight control board, although you can also, if you wish, include Spektrum and plug in a Spektrum receiver here if you wish to use DSM2, DSMX format, along with PPM and SBUS if you wish to use those type of receivers. Also, you can do such with this particular helicopter. Other items on this, we have beneath the flight control board, this goes to the main rotor, so this would be the electronic speed control for the main rotor, I believe. And the wires out of this go to the tail rotor, so this would be electronic speed control for the tail rotor blade, tail rotor motor. Other things on this particular quadcopter, we do have a carbon fiber boom going back here, so this should be crash resistant, the boom on the helicopter. Going back to our tail rotor and brushless tail rotor motor, which the size of that, what is the size of this little tail rotor? Oh, it's 1104 tail rotor, brushless tail rotor. Now, this does not have pitch control on the tail rotor like the main rotor does. This is controlled mainly by varying the speed, and that will vary the torque on the tail rotor blade to counter the torque of the main rotor blades on this. Those are the main parts of that, but now I mentioned this has 6-channel helicopter control. Now let me mention what that means, folks. Well, let's go over the controller to get into that. First off, we got throttle control, we got rudder control, we got pitch, and we got yaw control. Now for helicopter, additional items for the 6 channels, what they're talking about is we have what's called an idle up setting, which is this switch here when you throw it there. And what that does, folks, is when you throw this switch here, that puts the motor automatically into an idle spin, which it'll spin up to about 80% of its max speed. And when you give throttle up above the midpoint here, the helicopter will go up. And if you go below the midpoint, you get negative pitch on these rotor blades, and the helicopter will push down. But this gives you the ability, if you invert it, that when you pull down on this, and you're upside down, the helicopter will be able to hover upside down using this throttle. They call it idle up. Throwing that position there. Another thing that makes this 6-channel helicopter is it does have throttle hold, which is this switch here. Throttle hold, all that really does, folks, is it's an arm switch. When it's in this position, it is armed. When it's in this position, it's in hold or unarmed or disarmed, in other words. 2 other switches on this, which actually I think makes this 8-channel instead of 6-channel, is you have a switch here for switching between stabilized 6G mode, which is for the beginner mode, which I recommend new pilots of this fly in, and 3D mode, which switches this to what would be called acro in a drone, where there is no angle restrictions. In 6G mode, there is angle restrictions. You cannot pitch or roll the the helicopter more than a certain defined angle, and that prevents the helicopter from rolling over or pitching over and crashing. So again, new helicopter pilots, myself included, should stick with 6G mode until they do practice some on a simulator, and then consider going into 3D mode once they feel very comfortable in the simulator. Okay, now what haven't I mentioned? Let's talk about simulators. Okay, real quick. Again, do not attempt to fly this in 3D mode, or you will break it if you've never flown 3D mode before. Go get yourself a simulator. And we're not talking about spending a lot of money, folks. This transmitter is simulator capable through that little port right there. And for $10, okay, $10 on Baggood, same place you get this, you can get this simulator kit, RC simulator. It comes with the software. And it also comes with all the cables that you would need for most controllers, at least. For this particular controller, you just need the dongle that this comes with and the little plug. This plugs into your computer. This plugs into the back port here on the controller. And you load up the software onto your computer, the provided software, and practice with the helicopters in the software, in the simulator, to practice flying in 3D mode, and also practice flying with idle up. If you want to try flying inverted, you can do such in the simulator program. And then again, when you feel very comfortable, then consider going back to your original helicopter. And I'd recommend starting off, if you're going to fly 3D mode, starting off with idle up and just switching to 3D mode acro, and just practicing hover first. Start off with hover and see if you can hold the helicopter steady and hover. Do not try to do acrobatics in the very beginning. You will crash it, you will break it, then you'll feel very bad. Okay. So That's my spiel about the simulator programs, folks. I highly recommend them. Okay, let's go over what else you get in the box. You get the helicopter itself. By the way, this is held on by, there's also these little end caps that go over these pins for holding the canopy on the helicopter. I just removed them to make it easy to show you what comes inside, or what is inside that canopy there. Additional items you get in the box. You get an instruction user manual for the helicopter. It is very basic. I do not recommend, actually watch my video. I'm going to go over more detail than what this particular manual did. If you're new to helicopters, you are not going to be, this is not going to be much help to you. I'm sorry, Eachine, this manual's bad. You also get an instruction manual for the controller. That's a little better, but not much. So, again, watch my video. I'll show you how to get in the air, folks, with this particular helicopter. And also you get a warning saying if you don't know what you're doing, don't mess around with the, this is what I gather from this, don't mess around with the control settings in your particular controller, or else you will probably crash your helicopter. So, other things you get in the package, you get tools for doing repair on this helicopter if you do crash it. Along with spare parts that you get is one plastic main rotor gear, and one spare tail rotor blade, and one set of main rotor blades. And for powering this, you get three 7.4 volt 700 milliampere hour batteries, along with a charger for these batteries, a basic charger for charging these 2S batteries. So that's what you get in this particular helicopter. Now let me power this up, and I want to show you details, like I suggested, of what the controls actually do when you're operating this particular helicopter. Speaking of cyclic and collective control, I want to go into detail on that. So let's do that, folks. 3, 2, 1. Okay, as promised, I want to show you how to get into the air. We'll have to go over the switch positions first. Now, I labeled these because they weren't very well labeled to begin with, to show which position is which and what they really do. Again, this is your idle switch, your idle up switch, some people call it. Forward is normal flight, which is what I recommend beginners use. Back is idle up, which makes any position above 0, midpoint position. This makes the helicopter go up, and this makes the helicopter descend if you come downward when you're in idle position. And it also enables you to fly upside down by giving negative thrust on the rotor blades when you pull downward like that, and that causes negative thrust so that the helicopter can fly upside down. Again, if you are a beginner, push this forward. Make sure that the switch is always forward. Okay? Do not pull it toward you to put it in idle up unless you feel very comfortable. We're going to try that. I'm going to do a quick check out in the field. We're going to send it up, and then I'm going to put the position at midpoint and switch to idle up to show you it going up or down. And I'm just going to do up or downs like that just to show you what this does. But again, for most folks, keep this switch forward, as you're learning to fly. Now, the 6G 3D mode, I recommend for new pilots, keep this switch up. Keep it up. That is the 6G stabilized position. Again, in that position there, the helicopter will not pitch over a certain amount of degrees or roll over a certain amount of degrees, preventing flipping the helicopter from flipping over. So if you keep it in that position, and also if you let go of the stick, the right stick that is, this helicopter will automatically level itself in flight. Other switches on this for beginner flyers, make sure this position switch is in the up position. This is low rates and high rates. This is your dual rate switch in effect. Again, if you want to fly fast, you bring it down like this, and the pitch, the maximum pitch that you can go will greatly increase along with your yaw rate, how fast the helicopter will turn in this axis here. But again, for beginner pilots and new helicopter pilots, leave this in the up position. And finally, this is your arm switch. When you're plugging in the battery, again, check these switches forward. This switch is up, this switch is up, and this switch is toward you. That is hold position or disarm. If you push this switch back, that arms the motor, And if you are in throttle idle up, this motor will automatically start spinning and you may hurt yourself. So again, especially make sure that this switch is forward and this switch is back before you arm that motor, in hold position, throttle hold position. Okay, so with that in mind, let's make sure I got the switches right. 6G, and I am in normal, forward, and I am in low, and I have this switch toward me, which is hold. And now I am going to plug in the battery. And then I want to show you what these Cyclic, and we're going to talk about Cyclic and collective control with this particular helicopter. So hold on, folks, while I plug this in. Oh, actually, I should turn this on. Turn that on first. This is a hobby grade. And then you plug it in. Okay, wait a second there until I heard the chirps, and there we go. Now we are bound to the transmitter. Now, I cannot start the motors. Notice I'm putting throttle, and we're not seeing any motor spinning because, again, I have throttle hold on. But notice that we do see movement. Okay, now let's look at this. This is called collective control, folks. As I go up and down, up and down on the throttle switch, notice that Swashplate going up and down. And when that Swashplate goes up and down, when it goes up, that increases the pitch on the main rotor blades, creating more lift. And when you pull down, that decreases the pitch on the main rotor blades, reducing the lift on the blades. So for going up, you increase pitch or collective. You increase collective by pushing up on the throttle switch, increasing the lift on the helicopter. And then when you bring the throttle down, that decreases the pitch on the rotor blades, causing less lift. Okay? Okay, and now the next thing, let's talk about cyclic control. That's your right stick. When we push forward on the right stick, notice the back swap of the Swashplate coming up and the front of the Swashplate going down. What that does, folks, is increases the pitch of the rotor blade as it goes around the back of the helicopter, causing the helicopter to tilt forward. At the same time, the rotor blade, as it goes around the front of the helicopter, has decreased pitch, causing less lift in the front section, again pitching the helicopter forward. And if we pull back on the right stick, like so, notice that the front end of the Swashplate goes up and the back end of the Swashplate comes down, causing more lift on the front of the helicopter and less pitch and left lift on the back of the helicopter, so in effect causing the helicopter to tilt backwards. Similarly, as we look from the back of the helicopter, if we tilt, or we give it roll control to the left, we notice that the right side of the Swashplate tilts up and the left side of the Swashplate tilts down. Let's see if you can see that better up close. Again, creating more lift on the right side, less lift on the left side, and causing a roll to the left. Similarly, if we go to the right on the right stick, the right side of the Swashplate goes down, left side of the Swashplate goes up, creating more lift on the left side, less lift on the right, and in effect causing the helicopter to roll to the right. So that's how a helicopter controls work, folks. Good morning, Quadcopter 101 here with the maiden flight of the Eachine E160. We were about ready to go here, folks. First off, I want to make sure all my switches are correct here. I want to make sure that this is in normal position, pushing it forward, not in idle up. Remember that, folks. I want to make sure this is in 6G position, upward. I want to make sure that this one is in low position, which is upward. And I want to make sure that this one is in throttle hold position, which is toward me, okay? And then I turn on the transmitter first, okay? And then we plug in the battery of the helicopter, like so. And once it's plugged in, put it on the ground, let its gyros sync up and connect to the controller. There we go, you are connected to the controller. So we should be good to go. First thing I'm going to do is, again, double check my switches. I am in hold, low rate, 6G, and normal. Now I got a wind coming from that direction. I want to point it in that direction, and I am arming the motors. Okay, notice it doesn't spin because I am not in idle up. Now I'm going to slowly give it throttle and take to the air. So hold on, folks. And there we go. Now, I'm just going to fly it gently, folks. This is, again, a brushless helicopter. More hobby grade, okay? And here it comes by. Again, I am not coming out of 6G mode because I am not ready for that yet, okay? I have been practicing on a simulator, but the simulator takes time till you feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable yet to go to 3D mode, in effect, folks, with this. I'm okay flying in 6G, but not 3D mode. I'm sorry, folks, you're not going to see that today. However, if I can keep this in one piece, I would like to learn to be more proficient with flying a helicopter, okay? You know, I've always wanted to learn to fly helicopters. But they are a lot more difficult to fly than your average drone, okay? A lot more. They require skill. I have to admit that. And most helicopter pilots will tell you it took them a while to learn how to fly that thing. So we're just going to go around, back and forth to show you it's flying. I went to test out its flight time with that battery, mainly. Let's bring it in. Let's see if I can hover it. Pointing forward. I'm letting go of the right stick, and it's going with the wind, actually, I guess. Let's bring it in closer so you can see it at least. But yeah, even in 6G mode, this requires some concentration. This particular drone or helicopter, it does not fly exactly like a drone. Okay, it's not. Yeah, that's the wind blowing it toward me. Trying to keep it pointed toward the wind. Yeah, if you're a beginner helicopter pilot like me, I would recommend waiting for a more calm day. I wanted to get this review out. Maybe I should have waited for a more calm day. But the wind seems to be an issue today with it. Trying to give it keep it in the air. Now trying to keep it close to me, that's another problem. Let's see if I can hover it, at least hover it. And that's one of the things I recommend, folks, is if you're new to this, practice by hovering first. Okay, just hover. That's the first thing you need to learn to do. Same with the drone. And then once you get a better feel for hovering, then try going out and back. Out, letting go of the stick, rotating, and then back, bringing it back toward you. Okay? Pushing forward. And also at the same time trying to maintain same altitude. Wow, that wind is picking up. Okay, let's try that hovering again. Let's just stick with hovering here, folks, for this beginner helicopter pilot. But yeah, don't be overconfident, especially with this particular drone. You drone pilot, or this particular helicopter, you drone pilots out there, it's a whole new ball game, you know. You need to learn this one, and it's going to take some practice, both on a simulator and in real time. Again, beginners or beginner helicopter pilots, I recommend that you keep it in 6G and be very, don't be overly optimistic what you can do. Do not put it into a 3D mode. I strongly recommend you don't do that in your first flights. You will break it. So, okay, here's the wind. Let's turn it sideways. That's the wind blowing it away. You're bringing it back toward me. Close up. And also, maybe you shouldn't fly as close as I've been flying it to me too, if you're new to it. I'm taking a chance here. I don't want that blade to run into me, because helicopter blades can cause damage, especially if you've got a brushless motor. That's the E160, folks. I'm trying to see its bank angle. In this 3D mode. That's max bank angle. I'm not going to higher rate, by the way, either today with the Maiden flight. We're here to just show it to you in flight. Now, if you want to see somebody fly this in acro mode, or in what do you call that, 3D mode, and what it can do, I highly recommend that you see Ali Shamal's review of this. He put it through its paces, but he knows how to fly a helicopter. Okay, he's been flying a lot longer than me, so he knows what he's doing, folks, is what I'm saying. So and a lot of other people are going to say, "Oh, Ali Shamo don't know anything." No, you got to admit the guy does know how to fly. So check out his review, folks, if you want to see what this can do upside down. Hovering upside down. It can do it. So, well, it does seem to have a reasonably good flight time. As for flying indoors, I would not recommend this indoors. Again, those blades are spinning rather fast. You can hear them whirring there. And they can cause damage to whatever they run into. So, do not fly it indoors. I'm recommending folks you avoid that. I know you're going to be tempted in the winter months here to fly this indoors. Would not recommend it. So, all in all, reasonably good entry-level hobby grade for intermediate flyers into helicopters. And again, I am going to be practicing both on this and with the simulator program that I recommend that you consider because I do want to learn to fly 3D with helicopters. So, not a bad helicopter at all. Nicely made with all those metal components on this thing. Now I'm wondering, when do I get is there a warning when the battery is low? There is no light on the tail boom like on the E119 and E129 to let you know when your battery is getting low. Just don't see it. So no flashing light warning, in other words, for low battery. You know, other reviews I've seen of this, they were only able to get about 6 minutes of flight time. Okay, hear that? The motor's changing, so there you go. That's how you learn. It lands itself. And reducing throttle. And then, important, as always, put it on hold, folks. And that disarms the motor. So it's safe to approach and safe to disarm. So let me unplug it. Ooh, got some mud on it. I don't want that mud in the gears. Okay, unplugged. So that is the Eachine E160. It's a very nice drone or helicopter. Kind of pricey though, folks. So again, this is not for beginner pilots. This is for intermediate drone pilots or those with RC experience who wish to learn how to fly a helicopter, advanced helicopter, but already have been flying maybe some of the toy grade helicopters. This is the next step up. So hope you enjoyed this flight. This is Quadcopter 101, signing out. Hi, Quadcopter 101 here again. Hey, if you want to get your own shout out in one of my future videos, make sure you subscribe to my channel. It's real simple. Just go to my channel page and click on that subscribe. And also make sure to click that bell button right next to the subscribe button. That way you get notified when I release a brand new video immediately and give you a chance to get that first shout out. So give it a try, folks.